Okay, let's unpack this. Forget unlocking your phone for a second. Today we're diving deep into something profoundly human, our ability to understand faces.
Hmm.
But this deep dive isn't just about that innate skill. It's about how technology, specifically AI, is attempting to replicate, extend, and, well, fundamentally change our relationship with this core human function.
That's right. You've given us a fantastic collection of source material here, a truly detailed exploration of facial recognition from just about every angle imaginable.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're talking the technology itself, the underlying human biology, its long history, the intense philosophical and ethical questions it raises, even how it shows up in art. It's a massive topic.
It really is. And our mission for you, the listener, is to cut through all that complexity. We're going to navigate these sources, pull out the most important insights, connect the dots, and help you get quickly and thoroughly informed on something that touches every single one of us.
Absolutely. So let's start with the heart of it. When these sources discuss facial recognition, they mean more than just identifying who someone is.
Right.
It's about extracting and interpreting all sorts of information from a face identity, yes,
Yeah.
but also emotional states, potential intentions, maybe even aspects of social standing.
And the human side is fascinating. We've evolved this incredibly sophisticated, almost instantaneous system. Think about its purpose. It's crucial for building social bonds, understanding how people feel, so we can respond appropriately, true empathy.
Exactly.
It's vital for conveying communication that words can't capture, spotting threats in a split second, and of course, keeping track of who's who in our lives.
And the biology is pretty specialized. You have a part of your brain called the fusiform face area, or FFA,
Yeah.
which is particularly tuned to processing faces.
Okay.
What's key is that it doesn't work in isolation. It's heavily networked with areas involved in emotion and higher-level cognition, creating this rapid, often completely subconscious system for reading faces.
Now, the AI side is trying to mimic, and in some specific tasks, maybe even surpass this human ability, but it does it very differently through data and algorithms.
Right. The typical AI process has distinct steps. First, it has to detect that there's a face in the image or video stream.
Find the face.
Yeah. Then, it needs to align that face, essentially normalizing its position and size, regardless of angle or distance, kind of straightening it up.
Okay. And this leads to the crucial step, feature extraction. The AI analyzes the aligned face to identify key patterns and measurements. The distance between eyes, the shape of the jaw, the texture of the skin, subtle contours, turning all of that visual information into a complex set of numbers, often referred to as an embedding.
Exactly. This embedding is a numerical representation of that specific face in what you can think of as a high-dimensional space. It's like a mathematical fingerprint.
Right.
And the final step is comparison or recognition. The AI compares that new face's embedding to a database of known embeddings to find the closest match, using statistical methods and algorithms to determine the likelihood of identification or classify an expression.
And underpinning all of this is heavy-duty math.
It's the language of these systems. Linear algebra is used to represent faces as those numerical vectors. Deep learning, particularly architectures like convolutional neural networks or CNNs, are powerhouse tools here.
Ah, CNNs.
Yeah, because they're exceptionally good at automatically learning hierarchical features directly from raw image data, things like edges, shapes, and textures that make up a face. You have classification algorithms making the final decisions, and probability theory assessing confidence levels.
So it's all about finding patterns and measuring similarity, like how close two faces are in this complex number space.
Pretty much. And the sources really underscore that this technology isn't confined to the digital world or specific use cases. It has this massive, widespread impact because the face is so fundamental to human interaction across time and across cultures.
That's a key thread. You can trace it back through history. In ancient societies, recognizing faces was essential for survival, knowing your tribe, identifying outsiders. Faces were central to early forms of art and communication.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about ancient art.
Later, portraits became crucial for documenting identity, status, and power. Even less scientific endeavors, like phrenology, attempting to read character from skull shape, showed this persistent human fascination with deriving meaning from appearance.
Right, that drive to read people from the outside. Photography then provided increasingly accurate representations, leading into early forms of biometrics. But for most of history, facial recognition remained primarily that intuitive human skill.
And then came the contemporary era and the explosion of AI. Suddenly, this capability is being deployed everywhere: consumer devices, security systems, public spaces. The sources point out we're still very much living through the historical implications of this shift,
We really are.
grappling with the consequences for privacy, security, and who holds power over identification.
And the human side is tied into more than just the brain. Our basic capacity for facial recognition is genetically inherited, and the incredible diversity of human faces, a result of genetics, is both what makes our recognition robust and creates challenges for AI trying to generalize across all variations.
Right, that diversity is key. And there's even a potential link where AI could start analyzing genetic markers that correlate with facial features, isn't there? Something the sources mentioned.
Yes, the sources mention this as an emerging area. It's speculative in terms of widespread application right now, but the idea is that AI could potentially aid in medical diagnosis by recognizing facial phenotypes linked to specific genetic syndromes.
This quickly leads us into some pretty deep philosophical waters, though.
Absolutely. It forces fundamental questions about identity and the self. Our face is so intrinsically linked to how we are perceived, how we perceive ourselves, and how we are recognized by others, both human and, machine.
And, of course, the massive ethical and philosophical debate around privacy and surveillance. When AI facial recognition is used in public spaces, it raises profound questions. Do you have a reasonable expectation of anonymity in public?
That's the big one.
Is a society where every face can potentially be identified still fundamentally free?
The sources present these as critical tensions and viewpoints to understand. It's not really about taking a side on whether widespread surveillance is good or bad per se, but recognizing the stakes involved for individual liberties and societal dynamics, and that these are active points of debate right now.
It also brings in philosophical concepts like the gaze. Philosophers like Sartre have written about how being seen by others shapes our self-awareness and freedom.
Right.
AI facial recognition extends this to a persistent digital machine gaze, potentially altering that dynamic.
And with generative AI capable of creating hyper-realistic fake faces and expressions, deepfakes, the very notion of visual authenticity is challenged.
Oh, yeah.
Trust in what you see becomes precarious, blurring the lines between reality and manufactured imagery, which has philosophical implications for truth and representation.
Okay, let's circle back to the science that powers the AI. Physics plays a role, right? You mentioned light earlier.
It's fundamental. The whole process relies on capturing light. How a face is lit, the presence of shadows or reflections, these all dramatically affect the quality of the data the AI has to work with, just as they affect human vision. Optics, the science of how cameras and eyes capture light is obviously key.
And as you said, math is everywhere. It's the language of feature extraction and comparison.
Exactly. And the underlying logic differs between humans and AI. Our human logic in interpreting faces is incredibly nuanced, informed by context, past experiences, and heavily influenced by our own biases and emotions. It's messy, but rich.
AI logic is formal, based purely on patterns and statistical relationships learned from data. It's very precise in its own way, but it completely lacks that subjective, contextual, and emotional layer that defines human perception.
And that brings us to the state of mind, a term the sources use in fascinating ways. For humans, our current emotional state, our experiences, our biases, they profoundly shape how we interpret a face. If you're stressed, you might misread a neutral expression as hostile, for instance.
Sure, happens all the time.
AI doesn't have a state of mind in the human sense, but its performance does depend on the state of the training data. If that data is biased, the AI will perpetuate and even amplify those biases.
That's critical.
And the accuracy or inaccuracy of the AI absolutely impacts human states of mind, providing security, or conversely, generating anxiety about being watched or misidentified.
These systems also interact with our fundamental belief systems. The degree to which we trust the output of a facial recognition system, whether human or AI, directly impacts our trust in the institutions using it: law enforcement, governments, businesses.
Totally. And you can even delve into philosophical debates like determinism versus free will. If AI starts claiming it can predict behaviors or traits based on facial cues, it gets pretty wild.
And cultural nuances are also incredibly important. Facial expressions or cues can be interpreted differently across cultures.
Huge point. If AI isn't trained on truly diverse representative data, it risks misinterpreting expressions or perpetuating cultural biases in how faces are perceived. Some spiritual or religious traditions also hold specific views on the face, adding another layer to the ethical landscape.
So, putting all this together, what are the actual effects of this technology on you, the individual? The sources highlight both significant upsides and, well, serious downsides.
On the positive side, there's undeniable convenience and security. Unlocking your phone, faster travel through airports, helping law enforcement find missing persons or identify suspects.
Right, the practical benefits.
It can aid social connection by helping people with recognition difficulties, potentially assist in medical diagnosis, and serves as a tool in artistic creation.
But the downsides are significant and widely debated. There's the erosion of privacy through pervasive surveillance, the loss of anonymity in public spaces. There's the very real risk of misidentification, which can have devastating consequences from being denied entry to a building to false arrest.
And the sources are very clear about the issue of bias and discrimination. Due to unrepresentative or skewed training data, AI facial recognition systems often perform less accurately on certain demographics, particularly people of color and women.
Yeah, that comes up again and again.
This isn't a theoretical issue. It's a practical problem with serious implications for fairness and justice when these systems are deployed in real-world applications. Like, really serious.
There's also the chilling effect, the subtle change in behavior that comes from knowing you might be constantly monitored. The pressure to present a certain face, almost like emotional labor.
And the risk of dehumanization, where individuals are reduced to a collection of data points rather than complex beings.
The world's reaction, understandably, is deeply polarized. On one hand, you have significant enthusiasm, often from governments and corporations who see immense potential for efficiency, security, and, let's face it, profit.
And on the other, widespread alarm, particularly from civil liberties advocates and privacy organizations who see it as an unprecedented threat to fundamental rights and the potential enabler of surveillance states. It's a real clash.
This tension has led to intense regulatory scrutiny around the globe, attempting to balance perceived security benefits with privacy rights, and a growing public skepticism as people become more aware of the technology's limitations and potential for misuse.
Which brings us directly to the ethical dimensions, the constant question of right and wrong use.
Exactly.
The ethical implications are vast and interconnected. We're talking about autonomy, your right to control your own image and data. Justice and fairness, ensuring the systems are unbiased and used justly. Privacy, the right to be free from unwarranted intrusion.
Accountability, too, right? Who's responsible?
Big one. Accountability, determining who is responsible when harm occurs. Transparency, understanding how these complex systems make decisions. And human dignity, ensuring individuals aren't simply treated as data points for algorithmic analysis.
And an AI doesn't have its own internal moral compass, right? Its sense of right or wrong is entirely determined by its programming and the goals set by its creators.
Precisely. This highlights a core challenge. How do you embed complex, often conflicting human ethical frameworks into algorithmic logic? An AI optimized purely for finding matches might operate in ways a human ethicist would find deeply problematic.
Stepping away from the technical and ethical for a moment, the centrality of faces is obvious throughout human art forms.
Oh, absolutely. Portraits, theater, movies, sculpture of the face is the primary vehicle for conveying emotion, character, narrative. Artists have always grappled with capturing identity and expression through faces. It's fundamental.
And AI is impacting this space too, from creating hyper-realistic CGI characters to the ethical minefield of deepfakes, adding another layer to the complexity of authenticity in visual media.
The sources also touch on how human struggles and misfortune manifest on the face and affect recognition.
They really do. Chronic stress, trauma, physical injury, even the visible effects of poverty or illness, these can alter expressions, appearance, and complicate recognition, both for humans and AI.
Yeah, think about how depression can subtly change someone's expression, potentially leading to misinterpretations, or the profound physical and expressive changes associated with substance abuse. The face becomes a kind of record of life's hardships.
And the face can also be a battleground for truth and deception. The concept of micro-expressions revealing concealed emotions highlights the face as a complex source of information we constantly try to read.
It's a canvas for the deepest parts of the human condition, really. States like vulnerability, greed, sincerity, reverence, the effects of experience with life and death, faith, they all find some manifestation on the face and influence how we are perceived and recognized.
Let's delve a bit more into understanding emotion and intent. You mentioned AI can classify basic emotions.
Yes. Modern AI is quite capable of classifying a face into basic emotional categories like happy, sad, angry, surprised. They might do this by analyzing patterns learned from data or by identifying specific muscle movements called action units, which correlate with certain expressions.
Okay, so it can spot happy. But understanding intent, knowing why someone is expressing something, or if they're faking it, that's a different level entirely, one humans, well, we usually excel at.
It's a significant challenge for AI. Understanding intent requires context, a lifetime of common sense knowledge, and what cognitive scientists call theory of mind, the ability to understand that others have their own internal mental states, beliefs, and motivations that drive their actions.
Which AI just doesn't have.
Exactly. AI lacks this. It can classify a smile, but it doesn't know if it's genuine joy, politeness, or concealment. It just sees the pattern.
How about understanding something like human concentration? You can often tell someone is focused just by looking at their face.
Absolutely. Subtle cues like a furrowed brow, narrowed eyes, specific head posture, or reduced blinking often signal deep concentration. We read these intuitively in human interactions, teaching, learning, collaborating.
And there are potential applications for AI trying to understand this, though maybe slightly creepy ones.
Yes, the sources point to areas like educational technology, potentially detecting disengagement, or optimizing work environments based on detected focus levels. Though, again, as you say, these applications raise serious questions about surveillance and individual autonomy that need careful consideration.
What sort of things would AI track conceptually to gauge concentration? Like what data points?
Based on the sources, it might look at gaze direction, head pose, micro-expressions indicating cognitive effort, maybe blink rate, or even changes in pupil dilation, attempting to correlate these patterns with states of focus based on training data.
And how does facial recognition tie into our fundamental human needs and relationships?
Well, our faces display physical states that signal needs pallor indicating illness, dry lips suggesting thirst. Signs of satisfaction, rest, fatigue, lending, these are all facially expressed. This is crucial in relationships.
Of course. Parents read a baby's face to understand hunger or discomfort. We read the faces of friends, family, coworkers to gauge rapport, empathy, and navigate social dynamics. It's how we connect.
Even subtle social factors like perceived status, wealth, or education can influence how faces are presented and interpreted, potentially impacting opportunities. AI could analyze such cues across populations.
Which sounds ethically dicey again.
Exactly. That capability brings immediate ethical alarms about perpetuating societal biases. However, AI could also potentially help us understand our own biases in how we read faces, providing feedback or analyzing population patterns we can't see ourselves. So it's complicated.
So let's trace the origin threads again. Human facial recognition is deep evolutionary history.
Right. An innate evolved capacity essential for navigating the social world from infancy, which then refines throughout our lives based on experience. It's just part of being human.
And AI facial recognition started much more simply, rudimentary almost.
Very. Early attempts used basic geometric measurements. The 90s brought statistical methods like eigenfaces. The real leap came in the last decade or so with deep learning and massive datasets, allowing for much higher accuracy in specific tasks, sometimes exceeding human benchmarks.
But it's very much still in the making. It's not solved.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Researchers are constantly working on improving robustness, making systems reliable in poor lighting, varying angles, or as people age. There's a major focus on bias mitigation to ensure fairness across demographics. Integrating ethics effectively remains a huge challenge.
Right.
They're pushing for more nuanced understanding beyond basic emotion and developing explainable AI so we understand why a system made a particular decision. And grappling with the implications of generative AI like deepfakes is ongoing. It's a moving target.
And just as humans improve their understanding of faces over a lifetime through experience, maybe AI could potentially help us improve.
Exactly. That's one potential positive application. AI could offer insights from large-scale data analysis, provide training feedback for specific skills like reading microexpressions, or even help debias our own perception through targeted training simulations.
There's this ambitious, slightly futuristic idea in the sources about using AI facial recognition to help humans feel good all the time. Sounds a bit much.
Yes, the concept is using AI to continuously monitor facial cues for signs of stress, fatigue, or negative emotion, and then automatically adjusting the environment, suggesting interventions, or even providing therapeutic support. Personalized wellness driven by facial data.
But this comes with a massive caveat, doesn't it? Like a really big one.
An absolutely crucial one. This level of continuous monitoring is inherently invasive. The potential benefit of feeling good must be very carefully balanced against individual autonomy and privacy. The technology's purpose should be empowerment and support, not a tool for intrusive control or manipulation. That's the tightrope.
So looking back at everything we've covered, what are the absolute essential points humans, like our listener, need to know? The key takeaways.
Okay, first, understand what AI facial recognition is. It's a technological system based on data, algorithms, and probability, not some kind of magical intuition.
Got it. Not magic.
Second, know its limitations. It is fallible, it's susceptible to bias, which can lead to real harm, and it can be fooled. Third, grasp the ethical implications. The fundamental trade-offs regarding privacy, surveillance, and potential misuse.
And your rights.
Yes. Fourth, be aware of your rights regarding this technology's use. And finally, appreciate the fundamental difference between how AI categorizes faces and how humans achieve genuine contextual understanding and empathy. They're not the same thing.
And who benefits most from this technology right now, according to the sources? Who's winning?
Well, the primary beneficiaries identified are governments and law enforcement, major tech companies, the security industry, and various businesses implementing it for authentication or analytics. The benefits for individuals are often indirect or come at the cost of some privacy.
We discussed AI's ability to refine human logic using data, but it certainly can't provide life's meaning. That seems obvious, but worth stating.
No, that remains firmly within the realm of human experience, philosophy, and individual subjective quests. AI can analyze all the data about human searches for meaning, but it doesn't participate in that search itself. It's a tool, not a guru.
The sources even briefly mention recognition after death. That's a bit eerie.
Yes, touching on concepts like digital legacy or digital immortality, where AI could potentially preserve or recreate likenesses, allowing a form of recognition or interaction to continue beyond physical life. It's an interesting, maybe unsettling idea.
What about cruelty? Why do cruel people often seem to evade recognition or lack care about being identified in the typical social sense? Is there something there?
That's more psychology, I think. Cruelty often stems from a fundamental lack of empathy and disregard for social norms and consequences. Cruel individuals may actively work to avoid identification when it suits their purpose, operating outside the typical human need for positive social recognition.
So AI is just a tool in that context.
Exactly. AI, in this context, is simply a tool that can be used by others to try and identify perpetrators, but it possesses no inherent morality or understanding of cruelty itself.
The sources also contrast a human born without the sense of humanity or facial cues versus AI lacking the ability. What's the difference?
Well, a human lacking that innate capacity would face immense challenges in social interaction, empathy, and understanding of the world, likely leading to profound isolation. It would be a fundamental disability.
Right.
If AI lacked this capability, it would simply represent a significant technological limitation, restricting its applications across many fields. It's a functional deficit for the tech, not a human tragedy.
So for us navigating this world, what are the necessary human beliefs? What do we need to hold on to?
A crucial balance, I think the sources suggest. A necessary belief in the potential for technology to improve lives, coupled with a healthy skepticism about its limitations, biases, and potential for misuse.
Skepticism is key.
Definitely. A strong belief in the need for thoughtful regulation and independent oversight. And perhaps most importantly, a belief in the necessity of maintaining human agency and control over decisions that significantly impact human lives.
Right.
We need to stay in the driver's seat.
The complexity is immense.
Right.
The sources use the example of people laughing together versus not laughing to illustrate this. How does that work?
It's a great example. Laughter can be a shared, intuitive response, showing connection and understanding. But why any specific individual laughs or doesn't laugh at a given moment is a result of an incredibly complex interplay of their personal history, culture, current mood, how they process information, their shared experiences,
So much going on.
and so much more. AI could potentially analyze cues to predict whether someone might laugh, but it struggles profoundly with understanding the deep individual why behind that reaction, the rich tapestry of human experience that leads to that moment. It sees the surface, not the depth.
Based on the sources, where does this technology seem to be leading us? What's the trajectory?
Well, it points towards increased and more pervasive data collection, more personalized digital and physical experiences driven by recognition, heightened security measures, but also expanding surveillance capabilities, that duality again.
Right.
An intensification of the ethical battles around privacy, fairness, and control. New forms of interaction between humans and AI using facial interfaces, and potentially, for better or worse, using AI analysis to gain new insights into ourselves, individually and collectively.
How does human intuition stack up against AI's understanding in this space? Is it even comparable?
Human intuition is that rapid, subconscious, holistic assessment based on a lifetime of accumulated experience, drawing in subtle cues beyond just the face tone of voice, body language, context. It's rich and integrated.
And AI.
AI intuition, in contrast, is highly sophisticated pattern matching and statistical inference. It mimics the result of recognition, but lacks the deep experiential understanding that underpins human intuition. It's more like a very clever calculation.
And ultimately, is facial recognition, whether human or AI, the purpose of life? Feels like we answered this, but just to be clear.
Absolutely not. It is a powerful faculty, a tool that serves various purposes within life, facilitating social connection, enhancing safety, providing convenience. But the fundamental purpose or meaning of life is a distinct question, one that this technology by itself cannot answer.
The sources also suggest AI could play a role in human coping strategies. How so?
Yes. Hypothetically, AI could assist by detecting facial signs of stress or distress, potentially informing therapeutic approaches, maybe offering personalized support, or even helping people practice social interactions in controlled environments, like for social anxiety.
Interesting. And all of this, despite the digital layer, comes back to the physical reality.
Right. Biometrics are physical data points extracted from our bodies. Our human capacity is rooted in the physical brain. AI systems rely on physical hardware cameras, sensors, computers, and the experience of being constantly analyzed or dealing with misidentification has real physical impacts on our stress levels and well-being. It affects our bodies.
AI also impacts our sense of freedom and undermines certain historical privileges, like the ability to move freely without being constantly identifiable.
Precisely. Pervasive surveillance fundamentally alters the expectation of anonymity that many societies have historically assumed, or at least allowed, in public spaces. That feeling of just blending in might be disappearing.
Given all this complexity, why don't we as adults do a better job of teaching kids about this? It feels like something they should know.
The sources suggest it's multifaceted. Many adults don't fully grasp the implications themselves or maybe feel powerless. There's a process of normalization where constant tech use just becomes accepted, unquestioned.
Yeah, it just is.
There can be apathy or other perceived priorities in parenting and education. It's
Right.
complicated and maybe a bit overwhelming for many.
But what should we be teaching them if we could wave a magic wand?
Critical digital literacy, definitely. Understanding how data about them is collected and used. The importance of online privacy and managing their digital footprint. Critical thinking about the tech they interact with daily. And knowledge of their fundamental rights in this evolving landscape. Basically, how to navigate it safely and critically.
And once you gain this deeper understanding of the implications, the biases, the surveillance potential, the trade-offs, it fundamentally changes your state of mind, doesn't it?
It really does. It's hard to regain that prior naivety, as the sources suggest. It leads to a heightened sense of vigilance, potentially anxiety for some, or for others, maybe a drive towards advocacy and action. You see the world differently.
So, looking forward, what are the potential paths for improvement and mitigation discussed in the sources? How do we make this better, or at least less harmful?
Okay, well, they outline technical approaches like developing algorithms, specifically designed to detect and mitigate bias. That's a huge area of research.
Yep.
Creating explainable AI, or XAI, so we can peer inside the black box and understand why it made a decision.
Transparency.
Exactly. Building systems more robust against manipulation or adversarial attacks, and implementing privacy-preserving techniques like federated learning or encryption, so sensitive data isn't necessarily centralized and exposed.
And policy and regulation are absolutely critical levers here. We can't just rely on the tech companies.
Essential. We need stronger data protection laws, specifically covering biometric data and mandating clear consent. There's ongoing debate around moratoriums or outright bans on high-risk applications, particularly real-time public surveillance without robust oversight.
Right.
Establishing independent bodies to audit and monitor these systems, widespread public education so people understand what's happening, and international cooperation to set global standards are also crucial. It needs a multi-pronged approach.
And societal and educational efforts are key too, not just laws.
Yes. Integrating digital literacy and critical thinking about AI into school curricula from a young age. Fostering ongoing interdisciplinary dialogue between technologists, ethicists, legal experts, social scientists, and the public.
Bringing everyone to the table.
Exactly. Emphasizing the development of human-centric AI systems that prioritize human well-being and autonomy, and ensuring diverse teams are involved in building these systems from the start to help reduce inherent biases baked in early. The sources making clear that the future of this technology isn't predetermined. It's still very much in the making and requires these multifaceted, conscious efforts.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And it leaves you with a profound thought to consider. Given everything we've explored, how AI can categorize basic emotions but struggles so deeply with nuanced human intent, and how our own faces can express such incredibly complex states of being from, I don't know, greed to faith. What does that fundamental difference tell us about human understanding compared to algorithmic pattern matching? And as this technology becomes more and more integrated into every corner of our lives, how do we, you and I, ensure we maintain and value our capacity for that rich, nuanced human understanding while navigating a world increasingly shaped by AI recognition?
This is DigitView.